Dear student, welcome back. In our last video, we ended with vector concept. Dear student, under motion in a plane chapter is nothing but chapter number 4. We discussed major important concept called vector. In a vector, we consider different important types of vector and subtraction of vector, addition of vector, parallelogram law of vector addition, and resultant of two vector by using parallelogram law of vector addition. Again, we learn different terms under that: position vector, displacement vector, velocity vector, or it may be acceleration vector. If particle is moving in between any two axes, we call it as motion in a plane. Or if the particle may be in a space, three axes are involved, and in that condition also we consider how to apply the vector concept. All those things we learn, and in our last video we consider last part of the vector is nothing but analytical treatment during addition of vector that we learn. Dear student, we are going to discuss today the next important thing or next important concept under motion in a plane is called projectile motion. Dear student, under projectile motion, we are going to discuss three important terms there. One is nothing but maximum height reached by the projectile, range of the projectile, and the third important term is called time of flight. These three terms we're going to discuss, and once you got the clear idea about that, we're going to discuss uniform circular motion or any particle moving in a circumference of a circle. Again, under that we're going to discuss the important concept called centripetal acceleration, centripetal force. These things we're going to discuss under projectile motion. Dear student, for exam point, it may be an annual exam or it may be a competitive exam, this part, especially projectile motion part, is very much important and is one of the essential concept or essential topic for competitive part. Now we discuss all those things one by one today. First we start with projectile motion. Dear student, first we discuss what is the meaning of projectile. Remember clearly the word projectile. The word projectile is nothing but a body or a particle. Remember this point clearly in your mind. Word projectile is called a body or particle. Projectile is nothing but particle or body. Any particle or body is moving in between x and y axis under the influence of gravity. That itself we call it as projectile motion. Puna nimge ಹೇಳ್ತಾನೆ, projectile motion ಅಂತ ಹೇಳಿದ್ರೆ ಯಾವುದೋ ಒಂದು ಪಾರ್ಟಿಕಲ್ ಅಥವಾ ಯಾವುದೋ ಒಂದು ಬಾಡಿ, it may be a chalk, it may be a duster, it may be a ball, it may be a stone, is thrown in upward direction in between x and y axis. Just imagine ಈ ಚಾಕನ್ನ ಎಕ್ಸಾಕ್ಟ್ ಆಗಿ ವರ್ಟಿಕಲ್ ಆಗಿ ಮೇಲ್ಗಡೆ ಬಿಸಾಕಿದ್ರೆ ಆಟೋಮೆಟಿಕಲಿ ಇಟ್ ಇಸ್ ಕಾಲ್ಡ್ ಮೋಷನ್ ಇನ್ ಅ ಸ್ಟ್ರೈಟ್ ಲೈನ್ ಬಿಕಾಸ್ ಪಾರ್ಟಿಕಲ್ ಮೂವ್ಮೆಂಟ್ ಸ್ಟ್ರಿಕ್ಟ್ಲಿ ಅಲಾಂಗ್ ವೈ ಆಕ್ಸಿಸ್. ಇದೇ ಚಾಕ್ ಅನ್ನ ಎಕ್ಸ್ ಮತ್ತೆ ವೈ ಆಕ್ಸಿಸ್ ಮಿಡ್ಲ್ ಅಲ್ಲಿ ಬಿಸಾಕ್ತೇನೆ, ಲೈಕ್ ದಸ್. ಇನ್ ಬಿಟ್ವೀನ್ ಇಫ್ ಐ ಆಮ್ ಗೋಯಿಂಗ್ ಟು ಥ್ರೋ, ಮಿಡ್ಲ್ ಇರ್ಬೇಕಂತೇನಿಲ್ಲ, ಎಕ್ಸ್ ಮತ್ತೆ ವೈ ಆಕ್ಸಿಸ್ ನಡುವೆ ಬಿಸಾಕ್ತೇನೆ. ಇದು ವೈ ಆಕ್ಸಿಸ್ ಆದ್ರೆ ಇದು ಎಕ್ಸ್ ಆಕ್ಸಿಸ್, ಇಲ್ಲೆಲ್ಲೋ ಬಿಸಾಕ್ತೇನೆ. ಯು ಆಲ್ರೆಡಿ ನೋ ಅಬೌಟ್ ಶಾರ್ಟ್ ಪುಟ್ ಥ್ರೋ ಆರ್ ಯು ಆಲ್ರೆಡಿ ನೋ ಅಬೌಟ್ ಜಾವ್ಲಿನ್ ಥ್ರೋ ಅಥವಾ ಬೌಲಿಂಗ್ ಹಾಕೋದು ನೋಡಿದಿರಿ ಈ ತರ. ಜಸ್ಟ್ ಮಾರ್ಜಿನ್ ಇನ್ ಬಿಟ್ವೀನ್ ಎಕ್ಸ್ ಅಂಡ್ ವೈ ಆಕ್ಸಿಸ್. ಈ projectile ಅಥವಾ any body or particle is thrown in between two axes. It may be xy, it may be a yz, or it may be xz. Any two axes, automatically it is called motion in a plane. And to get the projectile motion, any particle thrown in upward direction with a particular angle under the influence of gravity in between x and y axis, that itself we call it as projectile motion. Again, remember, to understand the projectile motion we need certain terms. That term we discuss one by one. First term I already told, projectile. Projectile is nothing but body or particle. Projectile is nothing but body or particle, or we call it as an object. Object is also projectile. And the second important term under that we're going to use is called trajectory. Second important term is called trajectory. Keep the word clearly in your mind. Trajectory is nothing but path. The meaning of trajectory is nothing but path. Here trajectory is nothing but path traced by the projectile. Projectile ಅಂತ ಹೇಳಿದ್ರೆ body. Path traced by the projectile we call it as a trajectory. Trajectory ಅಂತ ಹೇಳಿದ್ರೆ path. ನೆನ್ಪಿಡ್ಕೊಳ್ಳಿ, ಚಾಕನ್ನು ಬಿಸಾಕ್ತಾನೆ, ಈ ಪಾತ್ ಅಲ್ಲಿ ಮೂವ್ ಆಗ್ತಾ ಇದೆ. ಇಫ್ ಎನಿ ಬ್ಯಾಟ್ಸ್ಮನ್ ಗೋಯಿಂಗ್ ಟು ಹಿಟ್ ದಿ ಬಾಲ್ ಟು ಸಿಕ್ಸ್, ನಾವು ಅದಕ್ಕೆ ಏನ್ ಪಾತ್ ಏನಿದೆ, ಬಾಲ್ ಯಾವ ಪಾತ್ ಅಲ್ಲಿ ಮೂವ್ ಆಗುತ್ತೆ, ದಟ್ ಪಾತ್ ವಿ ಕಾಲ್ ಇಟ್ ಆಸ್ ಟ್ರೆಜೆಕ್ಟರಿ. ಟ್ರೆಜೆಕ್ಟರಿ ಈಸ್ ನಥಿಂಗ್ ಬಟ್ ಪಾತ್ ಟ್ರೇಸ್ಡ್ ಬೈ ದಿ ಪ್ರೊಜೆಕ್ಟೈಲ್. ಪಾತ್ ಟ್ರೇಸ್ಡ್ ಬೈ ದಿ ಪ್ರೊಜೆಕ್ಟೈಲ್. Path traced by the projectile itself is called trajectory. And the next important thing is called angle of projection. Third important term we call it as angle of projection. Dear student, keep this word clearly in your mind. That is nothing but angle of projection. If I consider example like this, it is the y-axis, we call it as upward. It is the x-axis, I call it as ground. It is the ground, x-axis. From this particular point, we call it as, this particular point is called point of projection. This particular point we call it as point of projection. Point of projection is the one, or it is a particular point. From that point, you're going to throw the object. That itself we call it as point of projection. From this point, now e point in the nitkondu, if I throw the object, automatically this particular point is called point of projection. From this point, if I throw one ball like this, ball move aito, and that ball is moving like this, just imagine, and path traced by this ball is called projectile, itself is called trajectory. E path alli ball hogutte. Just imagine javelin throw, or it may be a shot put, or any batsman going to hit the ball to a sixer. Just imagine ball ee tara move agide like this, and this ball is moving in this particular path. Ee path anna we call it as a trajectory. Trajectory is nothing but path traced by the projectile. Projectile is nothing but a body or particle. ಅರ್ಥ ಆಯ್ತಾ? ಬಾಡಿ ಆರ್ ಪಾರ್ಟಿಕಲ್ ಆರ್ an object is called projectile. Path traced by the projectile or body or object or projectile or any particle is called trajectory. At what angle particle is projected? At what angle particle is projected itself is called angle of projection. That angle of projection is mainly depending on point of projection itself. Just imagine e point anna we call it as point of projection. Yav point inda bisaktidare, point of projection. And e ball e particular velocity alli move aagta ide, that velocity I call it as v0. V0 is the initial velocity of a projectile or particle or body. That initial velocity makes particular axis from the ground or x-axis. X-axis is taken as ground here. Just imagine if I'm going to hold the javelin like this, is a javelin. ಈ ಪೆನ್ ಅನ್ನ ಜಾವ್ಲಿನ್ ಅಂತ ಎನ್ಸ್ಕೊಂಡ್ರೆ ಈ ತರ ಇಟ್ಕೊಳ್ತೇನೆ ಜಾವ್ಲಿನ್ ಥ್ರೋ ಅಲ್ಲಿ. ಜಸ್ಟ್ ಇಮ್ಯಾಜಿನ್ ದಿಸ್ ಒನ್ ಇಸ್ ಆಕ್ಟ್ ಲೈಕ್ ಎಕ್ಸ್ ಆಕ್ಸಿಸ್ ಬಿಕಾಸ್ ದಿಸ್ ಲೈನ್ ಈ ಆರ್ಮ್ ಅಂಡ್ ಗ್ರೌಂಡ್ ಬೋತ್ ಆರ್ ಪ್ಯಾರಲಲ್. ಇದು ಎಕ್ಸ್ ಆಕ್ಸಿಸ್ ಆಯ್ತು, ಇದು ಜಾವ್ಲಿನ್ ಆಯ್ತು. ಜಸ್ಟ್ ಇಮ್ಯಾಜಿನ್ ಐ ಹೋಲ್ಡ್ ದಿ ಜಾವ್ಲಿನ್ ವಿತ್ ಅ ಪರ್ಟಿಕ್ಯುಲರ್ ಆಂಗಲ್ ಫ್ರಮ್ ದಿಸ್ ಶೋಲ್ಡರ್ ಇಂದ ಇಲ್ಲಿ ಇಟ್ಕೊಳ್ಳಿ. ದಿಸ್ ಇಸ್ ದ ಪರ್ಟಿಕ್ಯುಲರ್ ಆಂಗಲ್. ದಟ್ ಆಂಗಲ್ ಇಟ್ ಸೆಲ್ಫ್ ಇಸ್ ಕಾಲ್ಡ್ ಆಂಗಲ್ ಆಫ್ ಪ್ರೊಜೆಕ್ಷನ್ ಥೀಟಾ. ಥೀಟಾ ಇಸ್ ದ ಆಂಗಲ್ ಆಫ್ projection. E point in the bisakide, automatically it is called point of projection. And e path alli javelin move agi illello biddide, automatically this particular path we call it as trajectory. Trajectory is nothing but path traced by the projectile. Projectile is nothing but a particle or body or an object. And the third important thing, angle of projection. Angle of projection is the angle made by the projectile, is nothing but depending on the initial velocity and ground. That itself is called angle of projection, where theta itself is called angle of projection. Is that clear? ನೆನ್ಪಿಡ್ಕೊಳ್ಳಿ, the word projectile motion ಅಂತ ಬಂದಾಗ we have to think about three important terms. One is projectile, and the one is trajectory, third one is called angle of projection. ಅರ್ಥ ಆಯ್ತಲ್ವಾ? ಈ ಮೂರು ಪಾಯಿಂಟ್ ಅನ್ನ ಕರೆಕ್ಟ್ ಆಗಿ ನೆನ್ಪಿಡ್ಕೊಳ್ಳಿ. ಇಟ್ ಇಸ್ ಒನ್ ಆಫ್ ದ ಬೇಸಿಕ್ ರಿಕ್ವೈರ್ಮೆಂಟ್ ಟು ಅಂಡರ್ಸ್ಟ್ಯಾಂಡ್ ದಿ ಪ್ರೊಜೆಕ್ಟೈಲ್ ಮೋಷನ್. ನೌ ಕಮ್ ಬ್ಯಾಕ್ ಟು ದಿ ವರ್ಡ್ ಪ್ರೊಜೆಕ್ಟೈಲ್ ಮೋಷನ್. I told projectile is a particle. You have to think about motion. Again, projectile motion is nothing but motion of a body in between x and y axis. Motion of a body in between x and y axis or in a plane. Motion of a body in between x and y axis or a plane under the influence of gravity with a suitable angle of projection is called projectile motion. Motion of a body in between x and y axis or in a plane under the influence of gravity with a suitable angle of projection leading towards the concept called projectile motion. Artha aitalva? Right. These are the basic idea related to projectile motion. Dear student, we will discuss the next important concept is called trajectory of a projectile is parabola. Dear student, commonly they will ask this question for 5 marks or 3 marks. The question is like this. Hey keltar anta helidre question, show that or prove that trajectory of a projectile is parabola. Show that or prove that trajectory of a projectile is parabola anta keltare ಹೆಚ್ಚಾಗಿ for 5 marks. Dear student, here you already learned the meaning of trajectory. Trajectory is nothing but path traced by the projectile. Here projectile is nothing but particle. You already know path traced by the projectile is given here. What is that? Parabola. That you have to verify. Dear student, to verify this, we have to think about one small derivation. The derivation commonly they will ask for how many marks? 5 marks or 3 marks. Dear student, the diagram is like this. Diagram is like this. This one is the x-axis. This one is the y-axis. This particular point is called point of projection. I call it as O, where O is the point of projection. Particle will move in this particular path. I call it as parabolic path from O to P. Is moving from O to P. This particular point, I name it as A. A is the maximum height reached by the projectile. Particle is moving like this. Illello particle reach agide. It will reach somewhere here. Particle start moving from here. It reach to a maximum height A and is reach to a point P. Dear student, the particle is projected with the initial velocity. I will take it as V0. V0 is the initial velocity of the projectile. It makes particular angle with the x-axis or ground. That angle is denoted as theta, where theta is called angle of projection. Where theta is called angle of projection. Dear student, initial velocity V0 is the vector quantity, is in between x and y axis with a particular angle theta. Automatically that vector term or vector quantity resolved or splitted into how many component? 2 component. I clearly explaining about resolution of vector. Go back to the previous video. We already learned resolution of vector, how the vector is resolved or splitted into its component, that we learn. There are 2 important major component. One is called horizontal component along x-axis and the one is vertical component along y-axis, that we learn. And this initial velocity V0 is the vector term. It makes an angle theta with the x-axis, is resolved into how many component? 2 component. Horizontal component is V0 cos theta. V0 cos theta, and vertical vertical component is V naught sine theta, that we already learned. There are two important components that also we learn. One is V naught cos theta and the one is V naught sine theta. Is resulting into how many component? Two component. And again, important thing, by using this diagram and by considering V naught sine theta vertical component and V naught cos theta horizontal component, you have to get the equation. That equation will validate, that equation will verify parabolic path of trajectory of a projectile. It will validate or to verify parabolic path of trajectory of a projectile. And that is our requirement. We have to verify, we have to show the trajectory of a projectile is parabola. Is that clear? Right. And we'll do the continuation of derivation here. And you have to think about two important parts. One is along x-axis and the one is along y-axis. First you have to think about along x-axis. Along x-axis. If I am going to think about along x-axis, initial velocity of the projectile or particle along x-axis is V naught cos theta, because at this particular point it got an initial velocity is V naught. It makes an angle theta with the x-axis, is resulting into two component, and component or projection made by this V naught along x-axis is V naught cos theta. Our component or projection made by V naught along y-axis is V naught sin theta. And again here V naught cos theta is act like an initial velocity along horizontal or x-axis. V naught sin theta is the initial velocity along y-axis. Again along x-axis initial velocity is V naught cos theta. I assume initial velocity is V naught cos theta. Is along which axis? X-axis. Along x-axis, is it particle moving? No. Particle is moving in upward direction. Automatically along x-axis, velocity of a projectile from point O, point of projection, point P. It is the end point of particle reached by the particle, or last point or end point or final point where particle will reach. From this point to this point, velocity of a projectile is V naught cos theta itself. ಯಾಕೆ ಕೇಳಿದ್ರೆ particle is moving in which axis? Y-axis. Particle is moving in a upward direction. If particle moving in a upward direction, here along horizontal or x-axis, initial velocity is V naught cos theta. Throughout its journey, V naught cos theta remains as it is. Throughout its journey, V naught cos theta, that is from point O to P, complete journey, V naught cos theta value is fixed, velocity not going to change. If velocity at a point O to O is V naught cos theta, velocity at a point P is also V naught cos theta. E point in the E point, throughout journey, pratiyondu point along x-axis, horizontal component of velocity is V naught cos theta itself. Change aglilla. Automatically illinda illige change in velocity is equal to 0. If change in velocity is equal to 0, what is the acceleration along x-axis? 0. That's why acceleration is equal to 0, because throughout journey horizontal component or horizontal velocity is constant. Throughout journey, horizontal velocity is constant. Horizontal velocity is nothing but V naught cos theta is not going to change, is constant. That's why acceleration is 0. And by using kinematic equation, we know that x is equal to v naught into t plus half a into t square. This equation you already learn under motion in a straight line. X is equal to v naught into t plus half a t square. Here x is the displacement or change in position along x-axis. V naught is the initial velocity. What is the initial velocity along x-axis? They already given v naught cos theta into time is t, time taken for journey, plus half acceleration is equal to 0 into t square. 0 itself, this term becomes, what is that here? 0. After simplification, we got x is equal to v naught cos theta into t, or t is equal to x divided by v naught cos theta. I assume it as equation number 1. Okay, this result in your mind clearly, dear students. Along x-axis, through journey, velocity of a projectile is v naught cos theta itself. That's why acceleration is 0. Initial velocity is v naught cos theta. And by using kinematic equation, x is equal to v naught into t plus half a t square, we got the equation for time is equal to x divided by v naught cos theta. I assume that as equation number 1. Is that clear? I assume that as equation number 1. Then the next step, first I consider along x-axis. In a next step, second one, along which axis? Y-axis. Along y-axis. Dear student, in case of this diagram, along y-axis, initial velocity is v naught sin theta. Next important step, initial velocity is equal to v naught sin theta. V naught sin theta. Here, along y-axis, particle is moving in which direction? Upward direction. Automatically, acceleration A is equal to minus g, or you can take plus g also. Upward is minus g, downward is plus g. Both is possible here, upward as well as downward. You can take any one, minus or plus. Again, by using this logic, we know that along y-axis, displacement y is equal to v naught into t plus half a into t square. A t square is a formula you learn. Along y-axis, displacement is y. Initial velocity, v naught represent the initial velocity. Along y-axis, initial velocity is v naught sin theta into time is t minus a is equal to minus g. That's why plus becomes minus. Half in place of a, g into what is that? T square. Dear student, we already got the formula for time from equation 1. X divided by v naught cos theta. Substitute this equation in this equation. From equation 1, we get y is equal to v naught sin theta into t. In place of t, you have to write x divided by v naught cos theta minus half into g is as it is. In place of t, x divided by v naught cos theta, it becomes x divided by v naught cos theta t square. It becomes square. On simplification, it becomes y is equal to v naught and v naught gets cancelled here. Sin theta by cos theta, it becomes tan theta into what is that? X minus half. Here g v naught cos theta square is there. It becomes g divided by v naught square cos square theta. I will take this entire term together into x square. Dear student, this equation is exactly of the form y is equal to ax minus b x square. And remember, this above equation is exactly of this form, y is equal to ax minus bx square. That clearly gives idea that a is equal to what is that on comparison tan theta, b is nothing but it becomes g divided by 2v naught square cos square theta. ಹೌದಾ? ಈ ಎರಡು ಇಕ್ವೇಶನ್ ಕಂಪೇರ್ ಮಾಡಿದಾಗ a tan theta ಆಯಿತು, x as it is minus as it is, b is equal to this term into x square. ಈ ಇಕ್ವೇಶನ್ ಏನ್ ರೆಪ್ರೆಸೆಂಟ್ ಮಾಡುತ್ತೆ ಕೇಳಿದ್ರೆ, ದಿಸ್ ಇಕ್ವೇಶನ್ ಈಸ್ ರೆಪ್ರೆಸೆಂಟ್ ದಿ ಇಕ್ವೇಶನ್ ಆಫ್ ಪ್ಯಾರಾಬೋಲಾ. Equation of parabola. That's why we come to the conclusion that trajectory of a projectile is parabola. Hence, this one is proved. Is that clear? Right. ಯಾಕೆ ಕೇಳಿದ್ರೆ ಇಲ್ಲಿ ಏನ್ ನಮ್ಗೆ ಇಕ್ವೇಶನ್ ಬಂದಿದೆ, that equation is exactly represent the equation of parabola. That's why equation of parabola. That's why we can clearly say that trajectory of a projectile is parabola. Is that clear? Right. Just go through this. Is one of the important question for how many marks? 3 marks or 5 marks. Dear student, once you got the clear idea about this, next concept is you have to think about 3 important terms: maximum height reached by the projectile, range of the projectile, and time of flight. We'll discuss what is the meaning of that. Not only that, we'll discuss expression also in a next video or in a next class. Right? Just go through this. Is one of the important question for exam. Thank you.